nawati.
Talo be jampel kam ka chike. Unukulilo batel kutuch pajal be.
Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use.
Apocalypto 2 has been a topic of intense discussion and speculation among fans of Mel Gibson's 2006 historical action epic, Apocalypto. The original film, known for its gripping portrayal of the decline of the Maya civilization, was praised for its authentic use of language, stunning cinematography, and intense, survival-driven storyline. Directed and co-written by Gibson, it was produced primarily by Icon Productions and filmed on location in Mexico. Its depiction of Jaguar Paw, the young protagonist, fighting for survival against the backdrop of a civilization teetering on the edge of collapse, left audiences captivated. The film combined historical detail, physical action, and emotional depth, creating a cinematic experience that was both thrilling and culturally immersive. The conclusion of the original film left the story open-ended in many ways, with the distant sighting of European ships hinting at the coming of a new era of upheaval, and it is this narrative thread that has sparked widespread speculation about a sequel. The sequel, tentatively referred to as Apocalypto 2, remains largely unconfirmed by any official studio sources, and much of what circulates online is derived from fan speculation, concept trailers, and social media posts. Despite the lack of official announcements, the concept of a follow-up has intrigued audiences, imagining the continuation of the story in a period of dramatic cultural upheaval as the first contacts between indigenous civilizations and European explorers occur. Rumors suggest that the sequel would expand its scope beyond the immediate survival narrative of the first film to explore broader societal changes, focusing on the clash of civilizations, cultural preservation, and the resilience of indigenous people in the face of colonization. The setting is expected to remain in Central America, featuring dense jungles, ancient ceremonial sites, and landscapes historically associated with the Maya, allowing for the continuation of the visually rich and authentic aesthetic that defined the original film. Plot details for Apocalypto 2 remain speculative and are primarily sourced from fan-generated content. According to these rumors, the story would follow either a returning protagonist, possibly Jaguar Paw, or introduce a new warrior figure, sometimes referred to in fan lore as a Hanu. The narrative would likely explore the challenges faced by surviving communities as they confront not only the lingering effects of their own societal collapse but also the external pressures of foreign invaders. Themes of survival, cultural identity, resistance, and the preservation of tradition in the face of overwhelming change are expected to be central. Concept trailers created by fans depict intense action sequences, elaborate ritual ceremonies, and tense confrontations between indigenous groups and outsiders, suggesting a narrative rich in both physical and emotional stakes. These elements maintain the raw, visceral tone of the original film while imagining a historical turning point that could dramatically alter the lives of the characters and the fate of their civilization. As for the cast, details remain largely unverified. Fan speculation suggests that Rudy Youngblood, who portrayed Jaguar Paw in the original film, might return to reprise his role, though no official casting announcements have been made. The identities of other actors, the presence of new characters, and supporting roles remain unknown. Similarly, while some sources online speculate that Mel Gibson might return as director, this has not been confirmed by credible studios or production companies. Any potential production would likely need to navigate the challenges of recreating authentic sets, costumes, and cultural representation, given the historical specificity that was a hallmark of the first film. The release date, according to unverified social media posts and fan speculation, is suggested to be sometime in 2025. However, these dates have no official backing from studios or the filmmaker, and there is currently no production schedule, official trailer, or promotional material released through legitimate channels. The existing trailers online are fan-made concept videos that imagine what a sequel might look like, blending footage, CGI, and narrative ideas drawn from the original film. They emphasize the lush jungle environments, the intensity of combat and survival sequences, and the dramatic tension of cultural confrontation, but they do not represent an official product. These concept trailers have garnered attention and generated excitement among fans but should be clearly distinguished from any actual production progress. In summary, While Apocalypto 2 remains a compelling idea for fans of the original film, it is essential to distinguish between confirmed facts and speculation. The original Apocalypto stands as a testament to Mel Gibson's vision and commitment to historical storytelling, blending action, emotion, and cultural authenticity. The idea of a sequel imagines a continuation into a time of profound transformation for the Maya and surrounding civilizations, exploring themes of survival, resistance, and identity amid external threats. However, as of now, the sequel exists only in the realm of fan speculation and concept material, with no verified production, cast, director confirmation, or release date. Fans are advised to watch for updates from reputable film industry sources, as any official announcement would provide clarity on the project's existence, narrative, and production details. Apocalypto 2 is widely discussed among film enthusiasts and fans of historical epics as a potential continuation of Mel Gibson's acclaimed 2006 film, Apocalypto, which depicted the decline of the ancient Maya civilization. The original film was remarkable for its immersive portrayal of Mesoamerican culture, its use of the Yucatec Maya language, and its unflinching exploration of survival, human endurance, and the consequences of societal collapse. Apocalypto 2, though not officially confirmed by any major studio, has sparked significant interest, largely due to fan-made trailers and speculative discussions online. These sources suggest that the sequel would expand the narrative beyond the original film's setting, potentially exploring the arrival of European explorers and the ensuing cultural upheaval, providing a stark contrast between indigenous traditions and the forces of colonial expansion. The proposed story is believed to pick up shortly after the events of the first film, following the survival of the protagonist or his descendants in the aftermath of the Maya civilization's collapse. The jungle remains a central character, embodying both danger and sanctuary, while new threats emerge from the advancing Europeans. Unlike the first film, which focused primarily on internal conflicts, tribal warfare, and survival within a collapsing society, Apocalypto 2 would introduce a broader historical context, showing how indigenous communities faced not only natural challenges but also external forces seeking to dominate and exploit their lands. Rumors indicate that the story might even shift focus to regions under the Aztec influence, highlighting interactions and conflicts between various Mesoamerican civilizations in the face of conquest. Speculative plotlines emphasize themes of resilience, identity, and cultural preservation. Characters may grapple with the moral and practical dilemmas of resisting invaders while adapting to a rapidly changing world. The narrative could explore the contrast between the traditional ways of life and the transformative pressures brought by new technologies, beliefs, and diseases introduced by the Europeans. Survival, as in the first film, remains a central theme, but it would likely be framed within a broader context of cultural survival, emphasizing the struggle to maintain heritage and social cohesion in the face of overwhelming external forces. Such a story offers not only action and adventure but also a reflection on the human cost of historical upheavals and the enduring strength of cultural identity. Cast details remain unverified, but some fan sources suggest that actors from the original film, including Rudy Youngblood, might return in some capacity. Whether as a direct continuation of his character or through a descendant, the inclusion of familiar faces would provide continuity and maintain the authenticity that distinguished the original film. Beyond that, most roles and actors are purely speculative, as no official casting announcements have been made. The original film's attention to linguistic authenticity and cultural accuracy, such as dialogue in Yucatec Maya, would likely continue in any official sequel, emphasizing the immersive experience that fans expect. Production elements, including direction, cinematography, and setting, remain largely speculative. The original Apocalypto was filmed in Mexico and showcased lush, challenging landscapes that played a vital role in the story. The sequel, if produced, would presumably retain a similar approach, highlighting natural environments, authentic architecture, and historically inspired costumes. The visual storytelling would likely continue to prioritize realism and intensity, capturing the dangers, beauty, and complexity of the Mesoamerican world. Technical aspects such as practical stunts, minimal use of CGI, and attention to environmental authenticity would maintain the tone established in the original film, emphasizing a visceral, immersive cinematic experience. Release date and distribution details are currently unavailable, as there is no official studio confirmation. Fan discussions suggest a potential 2025 release, but these dates are entirely speculative. Concept trailers circulating online, while visually compelling, are not representative of a verified production. They serve primarily to illustrate how a sequel might appear and to inspire interest in the story continuation. As of now, no official production company has announced involvement, leaving the project in a state of anticipation rather than confirmed development. Despite the lack of official information, the concept of Apocalypto 2 highlights the enduring fascination with the first film's themes and visual storytelling. Fans are drawn to the idea of continuing the exploration of indigenous cultures under historical duress, combining survival adventure with historical reflection. Whether through fan-made media or eventual studio production, the notion of Apocalypto 2 continues to spark conversation about the potential for sequels that honor the cultural and cinematic achievements of the original film. The speculation emphasizes the importance of storytelling that bridges history and drama, highlighting the universality of resilience and the profound impact of historical events on human societies. In conclusion, Apocalypto 2 remains an unconfirmed but highly anticipated continuation of a film that pushed the boundaries of historical epic cinema. With its focus on survival, cultural preservation, and human endurance, it promises to explore new historical contexts while maintaining the immersive, authentic approach that defined the first film. While official details on plot, cast, production, and release remain unavailable, the discussions and fan interest underscore the lasting influence of Mel Gibson's original work and the ongoing curiosity about the fate of Mesoamerican civilizations in cinematic storytelling. The concept trailer and speculative narratives, though not verified, reflect the excitement and creativity of fans eager to imagine the next chapter in this epic saga. Apocalypto 2 is imagined as a continuation of the harrowing journey first depicted in Mel Gibson's 2006 film Apocalypto, which was set in the declining era of the Maya civilization in Mesoamerica. The original film portrayed the life of a young man named Jaguar Paw, who navigated the dangers of his world with courage, wit, and a determination to protect his family while facing capture and violence at the hands of rival tribes. The sequel, though unconfirmed and primarily existing in fan-made trailers and concept discussions, is envisioned to explore the next chapter of the story, focusing on the profound changes in Mesoamerican societies in the wake of internal collapse and the looming arrival of external forces such as European explorers and colonizers. The setting remains in dense jungles, mountains, rivers, and small villages, portraying the environment not only as a backdrop but also as an active element influencing survival, conflict, and strategy. This imagined sequel seeks to retain the cultural and historical authenticity that characterized the first film, emphasizing the rich traditions, languages, and belief systems of the indigenous peoples while exploring new narratives shaped by both historical events and human resilience. The plot of Apocalypto 2, as speculated by fans, begins after the original film concludes with the sight of Spanish ships on the horizon, signaling the arrival of a drastically new era. In this narrative, the descendants of Jaguar Paw or perhaps his direct continuation take on the responsibility of leading their people through a world that has suddenly become more complex and threatening. The challenges they face are multifaceted: rival factions within the region, changing environmental conditions, and the sudden introduction of foreign technologies, diseases, and beliefs brought by colonial powers. The story likely intertwines elements of survival, strategy, and identity, highlighting how communities adapt or resist the sweeping changes around them. While the hero's personal journey may echo that of Jaguar Paw, the thematic focus expands to include the larger societal transformation, illustrating the tension between tradition and the inevitability of cultural shifts. The jungle remains both sanctuary and battleground, demanding ingenuity, courage, and deep knowledge of the terrain. In these imagined sequences, the narrative emphasizes movement, chase, and tension as survivors navigate forests, rivers, and hidden paths to protect their families, preserve their heritage, and confront existential threats. This story, while fictional and speculative, builds upon the visceral and immersive storytelling style established by Gibson in the original film, blending historical inspiration with intense, human-centered drama. The central characters of this speculative sequel revolve around the new generation of indigenous heroes. The protagonist, possibly a descendant of Jaguar Paw, embodies the courage, agility, and resourcefulness required to survive in an increasingly hostile environment. Supporting characters include family members, tribal elders, and close allies who provide wisdom, guidance, and sometimes moral conflict. Villainous figures may include rival tribal leaders, merciless conquerors, or opportunists exploiting the societal breakdown. Each character's role is defined not only by personal motivations but also by the broader stakes of cultural survival, highlighting the deep connection between individual action and collective destiny. Dialogue and interaction are likely to be in native languages, preserving authenticity, with minimal use of modern or colonial tongues except when historically justified. The narrative places a strong emphasis on human relationships, alliances, betrayals, and moral dilemmas, reflecting the intensity of life in an era where every choice could determine survival or death. The emotional depth of these characters, their fears, hopes, and triumphs, drives the story forward while maintaining a focus on the tangible physical challenges they face in the natural and social environment. Production details for this speculative sequel are largely imagined or fan-driven. Some concept materials suggest that Mel Gibson could return as director, maintaining the visual intensity, historical commitment, and storytelling style of the original film. Rudy Youngblood, the actor who portrayed Jaguar Paw, is often cited as returning either as the same character or in a generational continuity, symbolizing the enduring spirit of the hero. Other members of the cast are currently unspecified, with fan discussions imagining a mix of veteran actors and new talent portraying both familiar and entirely new roles. Filming locations, if they were to follow the precedent of the original, would likely include the Yucatan Peninsula, dense jungles, rivers, and authentic village recreations to capture the vivid landscapes and immersive environments central to the story. Cinematography would likely prioritize dynamic action sequences, natural lighting, and long tracking shots to emphasize both suspense and scale. The thematic and visual approach would aim to balance cultural authenticity with cinematic spectacle, reflecting both the human drama and the environmental challenges depicted. Fan-made trailers and teasers provide a glimpse into what the story might entail, often highlighting a world in flux, the arrival of foreign ships, and the looming threat of technological superiority, firepower, and conquest. Dramatic imagery features dense forests, rivers, and villages, portraying both the beauty and danger of the setting. The trailers emphasize the survival instincts of the characters, their pursuit of safety, and the relentless tension as they navigate landscapes filled with hidden threats. While visually striking, these trailers are widely recognized as speculative and concept-driven rather than official productions. They often include captions and disclaimers alerting viewers that the content is fan-created, and that no studio has confirmed formal production. Despite this, the imagination and creativity displayed in these materials reflect a strong desire among fans to explore what a sequel could entail, connecting the emotional resonance of the first film with historical speculation about the next stage in the story. The anticipated release date, according to fan sources, is often listed as 2025. However, this is entirely speculative, with no confirmation from studios, producers, or Mel Gibson himself. The concept remains in the realm of fan imagination, online discussions, and unofficial promotional content. The absence of confirmed production details, budgets, or formal cast lists reinforces that this is not an active project, though it continues to inspire discussion and speculation among film enthusiasts. Any future development of Apocalypto 2 would require significant coordination, historical research, and logistical planning to replicate the authenticity and immersive storytelling that characterized the original film. Until such official confirmation emerges, all information regarding plot, cast, production, and release remains imaginative, providing a glimpse into the creative possibilities rather than concrete reality. In terms of thematic depth, Apocalypto 2 is imagined as not only an action-packed survival story but also a meditation on cultural survival, resilience, and adaptation in the face of inevitable change. The juxtaposition of traditional life with external invasion and societal collapse provides a framework to explore human courage, morality, and leadership under extreme circumstances. The jungle and natural world continue to play a symbolic role, representing both the beauty and danger of existence, the unpredictability of fate, and the intimate connection between humans and their environment. Spirituality, ritual, and the influence of belief systems remain central, emphasizing the cultural richness of the society being portrayed while framing the existential stakes of the narrative. Themes of family, loyalty, betrayal, and the tension between survival and moral integrity underpin the story, providing emotional depth and continuity from the original film. While Apocalypto 2 remains speculative, it represents a fascinating intersection of historical imagination, fan enthusiasm, and cinematic aspiration. The idea of revisiting the world of Jaguar Paw, exploring the consequences of societal collapse, and dramatizing the encounter between indigenous cultures and external powers resonates with audiences interested in history, action, and human drama. It invites reflection on the impact of colonialism, the endurance of cultural identity, and the universal struggle for survival against overwhelming odds. The narrative, while rooted in fiction, draws upon historical inspiration to create a story that is both thrilling and thought-provoking, with the potential to engage audiences on multiple levels. The fan-generated content around Apocalypto 2 underscores the enduring impact of the original film, which captivated audiences with its visual storytelling, authentic portrayal of Maya culture, and intense human drama. Although an official sequel has not been confirmed, the enthusiasm and creativity of fans highlight a continuing fascination with the story and its world. By imagining a continuation, they explore themes of generational survival, adaptation, and cultural preservation in a changing world. This imagined sequel, while speculative, reflects the powerful storytelling of the first film and its capacity to inspire further exploration of history, environment, and human resilience. The anticipation, discussion, and conceptual trailers serve as a testament to the lasting influence of Apocalypto, illustrating how a single film can spark ongoing imagination, engagement, and creative interpretation among its audience. Apocalypto 2, though not officially confirmed by any major film studio as of 2025, represents one of the most intriguing speculative continuations in the realm of historical cinema. The original film, Apocalypto, directed by Mel Gibson in 2006, set a benchmark for immersive storytelling, combining visceral action, ethnographic authenticity, and intense human drama to explore the decline of the ancient Maya civilization. It was notable not only for its historical attention to detail but also for its decision to use the Yucatec Maya language throughout the film, thereby creating a cultural and linguistic authenticity rarely seen in mainstream cinema. Apocalypto 2, as imagined by fans and concept creators, would potentially extend this narrative into a new historical landscape, exploring the encounters between Mesoamerican civilizations and the emerging European colonial forces, emphasizing themes of survival, cultural resilience, and human adaptability in the face of unprecedented change. The original Apocalypto was set during a period of societal collapse, highlighting internal conflicts, environmental pressures, and the consequences of political and religious institutions that no longer served the needs of their people. The protagonist, Jaguar Paw, survived the destruction of his village and escaped from captors intending to sacrifice him, demonstrating both human resilience and the primal instincts necessary to endure extreme circumstances. This survival narrative, set against the backdrop of a richly depicted Mesoamerican jungle, created a visceral cinematic experience where nature itself became an antagonist and ally, shaping the character's journey and testing their limits. The film's success lay in its ability to blend historical authenticity with universal themes of survival, courage, and the human will to overcome adversity. Speculative narratives surrounding Apocalypto 2 suggest that the sequel would shift focus from the decline of the Maya civilization to the onset of European contact in the region. This potential storyline is rooted in historical plausibility. By the early 16th century, Spanish explorers and conquistadors were beginning to traverse Mesoamerica, bringing with them new technologies, weapons, diseases, and belief systems that profoundly impacted indigenous societies. In such a setting, the sequel could explore the cultural shock experienced by indigenous communities as they confronted a threat far different from the internal conflicts and natural dangers depicted in the first film. Unlike the original, which centered on immediate, personal survival and tribal conflict, Apocalypto 2 might frame survival on a broader scale, encompassing not only the endurance of individuals but the preservation of entire cultures and ways of life. The imagined plotline of Apocalypto 2 could follow the descendants of Jaguar Paw, or survivors of the first film, as they navigate the increasingly hostile and unfamiliar world shaped by the arrival of Europeans. These characters may confront dilemmas of loyalty, identity, and adaptation, balancing the need to protect their people with the challenges of interacting with invaders whose motivations, technology, and worldview are alien. The jungle continues to play a central role, representing both sanctuary and obstacle, while cities and villages become sites of complex negotiations between survival, resistance, and assimilation. The narrative might introduce interactions with neighboring civilizations, such as the Aztecs, emphasizing alliances, rivalries, and the intricate political landscape of Mesoamerica at the time of European incursion. The inclusion of this wider historical scope allows for exploration of both micro-level human experiences and macro-level societal transformations, creating a layered narrative that resonates with contemporary audiences while remaining rooted in historical context. Character development in the hypothetical sequel could extend beyond physical survival to include psychological and moral challenges. The pressure of impending conquest, exposure to new technologies such as firearms and metal armor, and the threat of disease would force characters to confront their beliefs, values, and understanding of the world. Leaders within these communities would be tasked with making decisions that could determine not only their own survival but the continuation of cultural traditions and knowledge. Themes of identity and cultural preservation would naturally emerge, with storytelling potentially highlighting how communities resist assimilation, retain memory of their ancestors, and adapt traditions in the face of overwhelming external pressures. Such depth in character exploration would parallel the intense action sequences that defined the original film, creating a balance between spectacle and substance. While the original Apocalypto featured actors such as Rudy Youngblood, Raúl Trujillo, and Dalia Hernandez, the cast of the speculative sequel remains unconfirmed. Fan sources often suggest that key figures from the first film might return, either reprising their roles or appearing as descendants, to maintain narrative continuity. The potential inclusion of familiar characters could reinforce the emotional connection to the original story, providing audiences with a sense of continuity while allowing for the introduction of new characters representing the evolving historical landscape. The hypothetical cast would likely adhere to the original film's commitment to authenticity, emphasizing accurate representation of indigenous people, costumes, and languages. From a production standpoint, Apocalypto 2, if realized, would likely continue the immersive style that defined the original. The original film was notable for its use of practical effects, real locations, and minimal CGI, emphasizing realism and intensity in every scene. Filming in the dense jungles of Mexico and utilizing naturalistic lighting and sound created a visceral experience for audiences, with the environment itself functioning as a dynamic force influencing the narrative. A sequel would presumably employ similar techniques, potentially expanding the range of environments to include coastal regions, urban centers, and other landscapes impacted by European exploration. Cinematography would continue to highlight the contrast between human vulnerability and the overwhelming scale of nature, as well as the cultural richness of Mesoamerican societies. Themes explored in Apocalypto 2 would likely include the clash between tradition and change, the resilience of cultural identity, and the consequences of external intrusion on established societies. The sequel could explore the psychological impact of first contact, illustrating how communities respond to threats that challenge not only their physical survival but their sense of self and worldview. The narrative might also examine moral ambiguity, portraying characters who must navigate complex ethical dilemmas in a world where survival often requires difficult compromises. Additionally, themes of loss, memory, and legacy could be emphasized, highlighting the ways in which cultural knowledge, storytelling, and traditions endure even under duress. Speculative release and distribution details are largely unknown. Concept trailers circulating online have suggested a 2025 release, but these are not confirmed by any official production companies. Fan-made trailers provide a glimpse into what the visual style and narrative might look like, but they remain hypothetical and should not be considered definitive. These concept pieces, while impressive in their use of imagery, editing, and music, primarily serve to maintain fan interest and imagination rather than represent verified production activity. Until an official announcement is made, information about budget, studio involvement, distribution channels, and marketing campaigns remains purely speculative. Despite the uncertainty surrounding Apocalypto 2, the discussion of the sequel underscores the enduring impact of the original film. The narrative and thematic richness of Apocalypto continues to resonate with audiences worldwide, inspiring fans to imagine potential continuations that explore further historical and cultural dimensions. The speculative sequel provides an opportunity to expand the conversation around indigenous histories, colonial encounters, and human resilience, while maintaining the intense, immersive storytelling that distinguished the original. The dialogue surrounding the sequel highlights the cultural importance of representation, historical authenticity, and narrative continuity, even in the absence of official confirmation. In summary, Apocalypto 2 exists for now primarily as a concept, a narrative imagined by fans, and a continuation of the original film's legacy rather than a formally announced production. The speculation surrounding the plot, characters, and production offers insight into both the enduring fascination with Mesoamerican history and the cinematic techniques that made the original film compelling. While details such as cast, release dates, and official production remain uncertain, the idea of a sequel continues to inspire discussion about survival, cultural resilience, and the interplay between historical reality and storytelling. Whether or not the film is officially produced, the anticipation for Apocalypto 2 reflects the lasting impact of Mel Gibson's original vision and the appetite for narratives that immerse audiences in both the physical and cultural landscapes of ancient civilizations. Apocalypto 2 has become a subject of fascination for film enthusiasts and fans of historical epics ever since the release of Mel Gibson's original Apocalypto in 2006. The first film gained critical attention for its uncompromising depiction of the final days of the Maya civilization, told through the perspective of a young warrior, Jaguar Paw, whose journey of survival forms the emotional and physical backbone of the story. The original was celebrated for its authentic approach, notably using the Yucatec Maya language for dialogue, immersing audiences in a world rarely depicted in mainstream cinema. This attention to linguistic and cultural detail, combined with breathtaking cinematography in the dense jungles of Mexico, created an immersive, almost visceral experience. The film's conclusion, with Jaguar Paw watching distant European ships, hinted at the arrival of a new era and potential devastation, leaving a narrative gap that has fueled speculation about a sequel. The idea of Apocalypto 2 taps into this narrative gap, imagining a story that could explore the profound changes brought to Mesoamerican civilizations by the arrival of European explorers and colonizers. While no official studio has confirmed production, fan discussions, social media posts, and concept trailers have crafted a speculative vision of what the sequel might entail. According to these sources, the story would expand beyond the personal survival narrative of the first film to examine societal collapse, cultural resistance, and the effects of contact with foreign powers. Unlike the first film, which focused on immediate danger, pursuit, and survival, the sequel would likely address complex historical themes, the struggle to preserve culture, maintain identity, and respond to existential threats in the form of colonization, disease, and conquest. The setting of the sequel is expected to remain in Central America, retaining the lush, immersive environments that made the first film visually striking. Dense jungles, expansive river systems, and ceremonial city ruins provide a backdrop for dramatic action sequences while grounding the story in historical and geographical realism. Such locations are not only visually compelling but also historically significant, reflecting the intricate civilizations of the Maya and neighboring cultures. The sequel would have the opportunity to explore urban centers, rural settlements, and the variety of landscapes that characterize the region, providing both narrative depth and cinematic spectacle. Fan-created trailers have emphasized the continuity of this visual aesthetic, blending intense action scenes with atmospheric shots of jungle expanses, ceremonial platforms, and riverine escape routes. Plot speculation for Apocalypto 2 centers on a number of key narrative threads. Some suggest that Jaguar Paw could return as the protagonist, now older and more experienced, navigating a world under increasing pressure from external forces. Other theories propose a new character, often named Ahanu in fan lore, whose journey parallels the challenges faced by Jaguar Paw but also allows for fresh perspectives on survival, leadership, and community resilience. The sequel would likely focus on the confrontation between indigenous communities and European invaders, portraying both the immediate violence and the more subtle cultural pressures exerted through trade, religion, and political manipulation. Themes of survival would expand beyond the physical to include psychological and spiritual dimensions, exploring how characters adapt to societal change, confront ethical dilemmas, and protect their heritage. The original Apocalypto was notable for its intense, often brutal action sequences, and the sequel is expected to maintain this intensity. Fans speculate that the sequel could depict larger-scale conflicts, including battles between communities, strategic confrontations with invading forces, and moments of stealth and cunning reminiscent of Jaguar Paw's escapes. At the same time, the story could include ritualistic and ceremonial elements that highlight the spiritual and cultural practices of the Maya, providing a balance between physical action and cultural exploration. Such sequences would not only serve the narrative but also offer opportunities for visual storytelling, drawing the audience deeper into the historical context of the character's world. Casting for Apocalypto 2 remains speculative. Rudy Youngblood, who portrayed Jaguar Paw in the original, is rumored to possibly return, although no official confirmation exists. Whether the sequel would involve new actors for other roles, or feature a mixture of returning and new characters, is unknown. Any production would require careful casting to maintain the cultural authenticity and linguistic accuracy that distinguished the first film. Beyond acting, the production would likely necessitate consultation with historians, anthropologists, and language experts to ensure accurate depictions of customs, attire, and ceremonial practices, maintaining the immersive quality that fans appreciated in the original. The potential direction and production of Apocalypto 2 are also a matter of speculation. Some online sources suggest Mel Gibson might return as director, given his involvement in the original film. However, no official statements from Gibson or Icon Productions have confirmed this. Producing a sequel would involve logistical challenges, including recreating or expanding the elaborate sets of the original, coordinating action sequences in jungle environments, and possibly incorporating visual effects to portray urban destruction or large-scale confrontations. Concept trailers produced by fans already hint at ambitious sequences, combining CGI with practical effects to create dramatic action while staying grounded in the historical setting. Release details remain equally speculative. Various online posts suggest a possible 2025 release, but these dates are unverified and lack official backing. There is currently no confirmed production schedule, trailer, or marketing campaign from any credible studio sources. The existing fan-made trailers, while visually striking, serve primarily as creative interpretations of what a sequel might look like, rather than indicators of actual production progress. These trailers have garnered interest and engagement from audiences, demonstrating the ongoing enthusiasm for the story and its characters, but they should not be mistaken for official promotional material. Thematically, Apocalypto 2 offers fertile ground for exploring complex issues of survival, identity, and cultural preservation. Where the first film emphasized individual heroism and immediate physical struggle, the sequel could broaden its lens to include community dynamics, the impact of foreign influence, and the philosophical challenges of maintaining tradition under duress. Issues such as the psychological trauma of conflict, ethical dilemmas in leadership, and the negotiation between adaptation and cultural preservation could provide rich narrative depth. By exploring these themes, the sequel would have the potential not only to entertain but also to provide insight into historical and anthropological questions relevant to the decline of Mesoamerican civilizations. In summary, Apocalypto 2 remains, for now, a largely speculative project fueled by fan interest and online discussion. While the original Apocalypto remains a cinematic achievement notable for its authenticity, intensity, and immersive storytelling, the sequel represents an opportunity to expand the narrative into a period of historical transformation. It could explore survival, resistance, and cultural identity in the face of external threats, while maintaining the visual and thematic richness that distinguished the first film. Until official announcements are made, fans must rely on rumors, concept trailers, and speculative discussion, always distinguishing between confirmed production developments and creative fan interpretations. The anticipation surrounding Apocalypto 2 underscores the lasting impact of the original film and the ongoing fascination with stories that combine historical depth, cultural authenticity, and compelling human drama. The dense jungle stretched endlessly in every direction, a living, breathing entity of green that concealed dangers both known and unseen. The descendants of Jaguar Paw moved cautiously through the undergrowth, their feet silent on the mossy ground, senses alert to the whispers of leaves and the distant calls of unseen creatures. Each day in this new era demanded a vigilance that had been inherited across generations, the lessons of survival etched into muscle memory and instinct. Unlike the world their ancestor had faced, theirs was a land in transition, where old rivalries mingled with new threats and the winds carried rumors of ships on the horizon, vessels of strange people with unknown intent and deadly technology. These ships were not yet in sight, but the fear they inspired had already begun to shape the lives of those who had survived the last great upheaval of their civilization. The protagonist, a young man named Tlaloc, bore the weight of his ancestry with both pride and trepidation. He was said to carry the spirit of Jaguar Paw, not in supernatural form but in the same unyielding determination to protect family and tribe. Tlaloc's eyes were sharp, his muscles taut with years of running through the forest, swimming treacherous rivers, and climbing sheer cliffs. His mind, however, was equally trained in the subtleties of diplomacy and strategy, for the world beyond the jungle was changing, and brute strength alone could no longer guarantee survival. His companions, a small band of warriors and family members, moved with him, each skilled in specific forms of combat, hunting, or healing. Among them was Izel, a woman whose knowledge of herbs and rituals rivaled that of the oldest shamans, and Nahuatl, a boy barely 16 who had already proven his courage by leading others through a night ambush by a rival tribe. Village life had transformed in subtle yet profound ways. The elders met under open-air canopies, debating how to preserve traditions while preparing for new threats. Rituals continued, though they were infused with an acute awareness of the impermanence of their world. Children were taught the stories of the old gods and the triumphs of ancestors, but also the lessons of adaptation, how to move silently, how to anticipate danger, and how to read the wind for signs of approaching strangers. Fires burned constantly in communal spaces, signaling both protection and a gathering point for the tribe. Music, chants, and dances were not only celebratory but practical, encoding memory and strategy into rhythm and movement, allowing even the youngest to understand complex survival tactics through cultural expression. Tlaloc's journey began with a warning. Scouts had observed signs of a rival group moving through the northern passes, and rumors spoke of strangers, pale-skinned, armed, and intent on taking what they could. The tribe convened, deliberating under the shadow of colossal trees, their voices low and cautious. Izel advised caution, advocating for evasion and intelligence gathering, while others pushed for confrontation, emphasizing the need to display strength and unity. Tlaloc, understanding both arguments, chose a path that required stealth, cunning, and the precise application of force only when absolutely necessary. He knew that the jungle could be a great ally but also a cruel teacher, punishing mistakes with deadly precision. The first night of their journey was marked by a silent tension. The forest hummed with nocturnal life, and Tlaloc's group moved like shadows through the dense foliage. Predators watched from above and below, unseen but sensed, and the faint glimmer of firelight in the distance hinted at other human presences. Nahuatl, though young, guided the group through hidden trails learned from older maps carved into memory rather than paper, while Izel whispered prayers and chants to calm spirits and ensure protection. The journey was punctuated by moments of intense danger, a snake coiled in the path, a sudden landslide of loose earth, and the near capture of a deer they hunted for sustenance, all of which tested the group's cohesion, skill, and nerves. At dawn, the group arrived at a hidden river crossing, a place sacred in memory and tradition, where the water ran deep and clear, reflecting the rising sun. Here, they paused to rest and drink, and Tlaloc reflected on the lessons of his lineage. Survival was more than strength, it was vision, patience, and an understanding of both the seen and unseen forces that shaped life. As the sun climbed, their scouts returned with news. The rival tribe had moved, but signs indicated they were being followed by others, strangers unlike any they had encountered. These strangers carried tools and weapons that spoke of distant lands, of civilizations beyond the jungle, of fire that could kill from afar, and of ships that traversed oceans like floating mountains. The village elders met once more, their decisions heavy with consequence. They debated whether to confront the new arrivals, hide, or attempt communication. Tlaloc, knowing that indecision could be fatal, volunteered to lead a small party to observe the strangers, learn their numbers, their intentions, and the strengths and weaknesses of their equipment. They moved under cover of night, silently approaching the riverbank where signs of the outsiders had been found. Bones of small animals and crushed vegetation marked their passage, and the faint sound of metal striking wood echoed from the distance. Tlaloc's heart pounded, not from fear, but from the acute awareness that the survival of his people rested upon every observation and every decision made in the coming hours. As the first encounter unfolded, Tlaloc and his companions witnessed a clash of worlds. The strangers' methods were unfamiliar, their clothing strange, and their language incomprehensible. Yet, even in this, patterns emerged. The humans beneath the armor and pale skin moved with purpose and coordination, revealing strategies that could be countered with knowledge of terrain, timing, and the psychology of fear. Tlaloc realized that the jungle itself could become both weapon and shield, that streams, cliffs, and hidden groves could amplify the strength of his small band. Using these insights, he orchestrated minor ambushes, signaling his tribe with subtle markers and chants, ensuring that each engagement minimized risk while gathering crucial intelligence. The next weeks were a tense dance of survival, strategy, and cultural endurance. Each day brought lessons: how to navigate floods, how to track without leaving trace, how to anticipate movements of both prey and adversaries, and how to maintain morale and cohesion within the group. Izel's rituals played a vital role, connecting the group spiritually to the land, calming fears, and reinforcing the cultural identity that was under threat. Nahuatl grew into his role as scout and strategist, often devising clever diversions or traps to confuse the strangers. Tlaloc emerged as both warrior and visionary, balancing the instinct for immediate action with the foresight required to ensure long-term survival and preservation of culture. Apocalypto 2 begins in the shadow of a world forever changed. The great cities of the Maya lie in ruin, their temples swallowed by the jungle, their people scattered and struggling to rebuild. Among the survivors is the lineage of Jaguar Paw, whose cunning, courage, and resilience allowed him to escape the destruction of his village decades earlier. Now, his descendants navigate a jungle that is no less treacherous, but the threats have grown beyond the familiar dangers of predators, rival tribes, and the unforgiving wilderness. Rumors have begun to circulate of pale-skinned strangers arriving by sea, bringing weapons that shine with fire and thunder, diseases that decimate without warning, and beliefs that seem incomprehensible to those who have known only the ways of their ancestors. The jungle, once a familiar ally, now feels like both sanctuary and trap, its paths concealing both bounty and danger, forcing every decision to be weighted with caution and foresight. The story opens with a small village hidden deep within the Yucatan jungle. Smoke rises from carefully tended fires, children laugh as they chase small animals along the riverbanks, and elders gather to recount stories of past glories and losses. The protagonist, a young man named Kin, a descendant of Jaguar Paw, watches from the edge of the trees. His eyes are sharp, reflecting a keen awareness inherited from generations who survived the collapse of the Maya. Kin has learned the language of the jungle, the shifting signs of weather, the subtle tracks of animals and men. But this knowledge is about to be tested in ways he could never have imagined. One morning, scouts return with alarming news: strangers have been sighted along the coast. Ships with enormous sails, their hulls adorned with symbols unknown, glinting metal, and men who speak in harsh, guttural tones. Kin's village elders debate whether to flee deeper into the forest or confront the threat, knowing that any choice carries the weight of survival, morality, and the preservation of their culture. As word spreads of the newcomers, Kin sets out on a journey that will take him far beyond familiar forests. The narrative follows his encounters with neighboring tribes, each with their own customs, leadership structures, and histories of alliances and enmities. Some tribes greet him as an ally, recognizing the lineage of Jaguar Paw and the symbolic importance of his survival. Others are wary, skeptical of outsiders, or eager to test strength and resources. Along the way, Kin witnesses the devastation already wrought by disease introduced by the strangers, subtle at first, fever, weakness, death, but growing into an unstoppable force that threatens to undo generations of careful community living. These moments highlight not only the fragility of human life but the resilience required to preserve knowledge, traditions, and cultural memory. Conflict escalates when Kin and his companions encounter the Europeans for the first time. The stranger's appearance is terrifying, armor that glints under the sun, swords that cut through trees and flesh alike, and horses, enormous beasts unknown to the jungle, trampling both vegetation and human defenses with an alien force. The Europeans' motives are initially unclear, some seek wealth, others land, and yet others attempt to impose their beliefs and systems of governance. For Kin and his people, the challenge is not only survival but understanding, how to navigate encounters with these incomprehensible forces without sacrificing the essence of who they are. This tension forms the core of the narrative, as characters must make choices that reflect courage, strategy, and cultural wisdom. Amid the chaos, the story delves deeply into character development. Kin is no longer just a survivor, he is a leader, grappling with the moral weight of protecting his people. His companion, a young woman named Ixchel, embodies resilience, intelligence, and spiritual insight. She interprets the signs of the natural world, the patterns of the newcomer's behavior, and the subtle shifts in alliances among tribes. Their interactions illustrate both the personal and communal stakes, the future of their lineage, their cultural practices, and the knowledge of their ancestors. Villagers, warriors, and elders each contribute to the story, providing a tapestry of perspectives that reflect the richness of Mesoamerican life before, during, and after first contact with Europeans. The narrative frequently pauses to depict cultural practices in vivid detail, emphasizing authenticity and historical plausibility. Rituals honoring ancestors, ceremonies marking seasonal cycles, and complex social hierarchies all play a role, reminding viewers of what is at stake beyond mere survival. Architecture, from simple thatched homes to grand ceremonial sites, demonstrates both ingenuity and the symbolic importance of space. Food preparation, weaving, hunting techniques, and medicinal knowledge are all woven into the narrative, underscoring the depth and resilience of the cultures portrayed. These elements are not merely decorative but are integral to understanding how characters navigate and respond to the pressures imposed by unfamiliar threats. Action sequences, reminiscent of the first Apocalypto, are central to the film. Kin and his companions engage in tense, high-stakes encounters with rival tribes and European explorers. Ambushes along riverbanks, jungle chases, and stealthy infiltration of enemy camps are depicted with meticulous attention to environmental realism. The jungle is as much a character as the humans. Rivers surge with treacherous currents, mudslides and falling trees threaten the unprepared, and hidden predators wait silently, testing reflexes and decision-making. These sequences blend physical danger with psychological tension, illustrating how survival is a combination of courage, intelligence, and deep knowledge of the natural world. The arrival of Europeans also brings new narrative dimensions, misunderstandings, language barriers, and moral dilemmas. Some Europeans attempt negotiation, while others impose force, creating situations where Kin and his people must respond strategically. The film's potential sequences explore these tensions in detail, Kin observing the formation of European soldiers, realizing the devastating effect of their weapons, devising methods to avoid direct confrontation, and finding ways to exploit the environment to protect his people. Encounters are not merely combat-driven, they include espionage, diversion, diplomacy, and cunning, emphasizing intelligence and adaptation over brute force alone. Disease, as an unseen but lethal antagonist, weaves through the story. Villages fall to fevers, leaving Kin and Ixchel to navigate the dual challenge of caring for the ill and evading detection by the European forces. The narrative does not shy away from depicting human suffering, reflecting historical realities while highlighting courage, resilience, and ingenuity. The emotional toll is explored deeply, showing grief, hope, despair, and determination in equal measure. Characters' internal reflections illuminate their motivations, fears, and aspirations, adding psychological depth to the physical challenges presented by the jungle and invaders. As the story progresses, alliances between indigenous groups become central to survival. Kin negotiates truces, brokers exchanges of knowledge and resources, and forges bonds that highlight the social complexity of the time. Moments of shared ritual, storytelling, and music reinforce cultural identity, even as external pressures threaten to dismantle established ways of life. The narrative emphasizes that survival is not merely a physical act but a cultural and spiritual endeavor, requiring cohesion, shared purpose, and the preservation of knowledge. The climax, as imagined, is both intense and thematically resonant. Kin and his allies orchestrate a daring escape from an encroaching European expedition, using the jungle's natural defenses, clever traps, and coordinated strategy. The sequence emphasizes tension, improvisation, and the interplay between human skill and environmental mastery. The conclusion is bittersweet. While immediate survival is achieved, the broader reality of European colonization looms, foreshadowing the immense challenges that will follow. Characters reflect on the losses endured, the resilience displayed, and the cultural heritage that must be protected at all costs. Throughout the narrative, themes of survival, identity, cultural preservation, and adaptation remain central. Apocalypto 2, in this imagined form, balances cinematic action with historical authenticity, creating an immersive experience that honors the original film while expanding its scope. The interplay between human ingenuity, environmental mastery, and cultural wisdom illustrates that survival is multidimensional, requiring physical, intellectual, and emotional resilience. The jungle, rivers, cities, and villages serve not only as settings but as active participants in the story, shaping events, influencing choices, and testing characters in ways both tangible and symbolic. Although the film remains speculative, the detailed imagining of Apocalypto 2 offers insight into why audiences are fascinated by the continuation. It presents a story of human resilience under extreme conditions, the complexity of cultural survival, and the confrontation between different worlds and worldviews. By emphasizing character depth, environmental realism, cultural richness, and historical plausibility, this narrative approach honors the legacy of the original film while exploring new dimensions of adventure, drama, and historical reflection. The anticipation for Apocalypto 2 underscores the lasting impact of Mel Gibson's cinematic vision and the continuing interest in narratives that immerse audiences in the challenges, triumphs, and tragedies of human history. After the tense escape from the first European expedition, Kin and his companions find themselves deeper in uncharted jungle territory, moving cautiously along narrow, winding paths carved out centuries before by their ancestors. The canopy above is dense, filtering sunlight into fragmented beams that illuminate the vibrant flora below. Monkeys chatter in the distance, their calls echoing across ravines, while the rustle of leaves hints at predators lurking unseen. Every step requires vigilance. The jungle is no longer simply a home but a maze of hazards shaped by both nature and human conflict. Kin constantly tests the ground for hidden pits, fallen branches that might give way underfoot, and signs of rival tribes who might see his group as invaders in these contested lands. Ixchel, ever alert, observes the subtle shifts in bird calls and the faint scent of smoke, interpreting them as warnings of danger or indications of resources nearby. Their journey is punctuated by encounters with small, isolated communities. Some tribes welcome them with cautious hospitality, sharing water, fruit, and intelligence about the approaching strangers. Others view them with suspicion, arming themselves with clubs, obsidian knives, and bows, their faces painted in intricate designs that signal allegiance and intent. These encounters are tense, a delicate balance of diplomacy and threat. Kin uses the wisdom of his ancestors to communicate not only through gestures and shared symbols but also through demonstrations of skill and trust. He participates in hunting rituals, helps repair structures, and shows respect for sacred spaces, gradually earning the confidence of wary leaders. The narrative details the rich tapestry of cultural life in these communities. Villagers engage in weaving vibrant textiles from cotton dyed with natural pigments. Women prepare meals of maize, beans, squash, and fish, offering small portions as a gesture of hospitality. Elders recount stories of fallen cities, celestial events, and heroic ancestors, linking the past to the present and imparting lessons that shape decisions. Ceremonial drums and flutes provide a rhythmic backdrop to daily life, their music resonating with spiritual significance, calling people together for rituals or alerting them to threats. These scenes immerse the audience in a world where survival is entwined with tradition, where every action carries social and symbolic weight, and where cultural continuity is as vital as physical endurance. Tensions rise as the Europeans advance further inland. Scouts report sightings of ships along distant rivers, their sails white and gleaming, their men armed with crossbows and swords. Kin realizes that survival now demands strategy beyond hiding or fleeing. He consults with elders and leaders from allied tribes, devising plans to anticipate the invaders' movements, set traps, and mislead them. The narrative depicts these strategies in vivid detail: pit traps camouflaged with leaves, decoy camps designed to draw attention away from real settlements, and coordinated ambushes using the jungle's natural cover. Each plan requires courage, precision, and trust among allies, illustrating how leadership and collective effort are as crucial as individual skill in ensuring survival. Ixchel emerges as a key strategist, interpreting the Europeans' behavior, noting patterns, and predicting potential weaknesses. Her insights extend beyond mere observation. She understands the spiritual significance of land, water, and sky, using signs and omens to guide decisions. At night, she reads the stars and tracks river currents, identifying safe passageways and areas of danger. Her intelligence and intuition complement Kin's physical agility and leadership, creating a partnership that balances logic, instinct, and cultural wisdom. Together, they navigate the complex terrain of politics, survival, and moral responsibility, ensuring that their people remain resilient against both natural and human threats. The European presence introduces morally complex scenarios. Some invaders attempt diplomacy, offering trade or promises of peace, while others respond with immediate violence, seizing resources and demanding submission. Kin and his allies must negotiate, bluff, and sometimes sacrifice to protect their people. The narrative emphasizes that survival is rarely black and white, ethical dilemmas abound, forcing characters to weigh immediate safety against long-term cultural survival. Scenes unfold where Kin must decide whether to risk confrontation to rescue captives or avoid engagement to prevent larger losses. These moments are rich in tension, highlighting the interplay between bravery, cunning, and the preservation of humanity in the face of overwhelming force. Action sequences escalate in intensity. Kin leads ambushes along riverbanks, exploiting the European unfamiliarity with the jungle. Canoes are overturned, traps spring at critical moments, and arrows find their mark with precision born of generations of survival expertise. The jungle itself seems to respond to the protagonist's will. Vines tangle around invaders, hidden ravines slow their progress, and sudden storms create opportunities to escape. Each scene combines physical danger with environmental complexity, immersing the audience in a cinematic landscape where every decision is consequential. Amid these high-stakes encounters, the narrative continues to explore daily life, rituals, and traditions. Villages gather for seasonal celebrations, honoring the cycles of planting and harvest, performing dances that tell ancient stories, and offering prayers to deities who govern the natural world. These sequences are not mere interludes, they demonstrate the characters' connection to their heritage, reinforcing why survival encompasses cultural preservation as much as physical endurance. The juxtaposition of ceremonial life and imminent danger creates narrative tension, reminding viewers that even under threat, the continuity of culture is a vital form of resistance. Disease, often unseen, remains a persistent antagonist. Fever, dysentery, and smallpox-like illnesses introduced by European contact decimate communities unexpectedly, leaving survivors to navigate grief, fear, and the scarcity of resources. Kin and Ixchel work tirelessly to care for the ill, improvise treatments using herbal knowledge, and prevent the spread within their settlements. These sequences emphasize not only the fragility of human life but also the ingenuity, adaptability, and communal responsibility required to endure. Emotional depth is explored as characters confront mortality, loss, and the ethical dilemmas of resource allocation. As the narrative progresses, alliances strengthen and evolve. Kin negotiates with distant tribal leaders, exchanging knowledge, forming pacts, and uniting disparate groups against the common threat of conquest. Trust is fragile, betrayal, envy, and misunderstanding threaten to fracture these alliances at every turn. Yet moments of solidarity, mutual aid, and shared purpose underscore the resilience of human cooperation under extreme pressure. Through these interactions, the story illustrates how cultural identity, communal memory, and strategic collaboration are central to survival in a world disrupted by foreign intrusion. The climax of the story unfolds with a dramatic convergence of natural, human, and historical forces. European forces advance through rivers and valleys, while kin and allied tribes execute a coordinated defense. The jungle is transformed into a labyrinth of traps, ambush points, and hidden passageways. Strategic deception leads the invaders into treacherous terrain where rivers, mudslides, and sudden storms amplify the effectiveness of the indigenous resistance. Kin's leadership, Ixchel's insights, and the combined skill of allied tribes result in a narrow but meaningful victory, allowing many to escape and preserving critical cultural knowledge. Yet the victory is bittersweet, foreshadowing the ongoing challenges of European colonization and the inexorable changes it will bring. The resolution focuses on reflection, legacy, and cultural continuity. Survivors regroup in hidden settlements, recounting the events, teaching children, and maintaining rituals that honor ancestors. Kin and Ixchel, though scarred by loss, find hope in the persistence of knowledge, stories, and traditions that will endure beyond immediate survival. The narrative emphasizes that resilience is multidimensional. It encompasses physical courage, intellectual adaptability, emotional strength, and the preservation of culture. The story closes on a contemplative note, with the jungle once again asserting its presence, both protector and tester of human endurance, while the distant sails of new European ships remind audiences that the struggle for survival and identity is ongoing. Throughout the narrative, the balance between cinematic action, historical plausibility, and cultural depth remains constant. Characters are fully realized, with complex motivations and emotional arcs. The environment is treated as a living, reactive entity, shaping events and influencing choices. Cultural rituals, daily practices, and spiritual beliefs are intricately woven into the story, highlighting the richness and resilience of Mesoamerican societies. Action sequences are intense and realistic, grounded in environmental and strategic logic rather than spectacle alone. The presence of Europeans introduces historical tension, moral ambiguity, and thematic depth, allowing the narrative to explore human resilience in both physical and cultural dimensions. Ultimately, Apocalypto 2, as imagined, serves as both a continuation and an expansion of the original film's legacy. It illustrates the enduring fascination with survival under extreme circumstances, the complex interplay between cultures, and the human capacity for ingenuity, courage, and adaptation. Through detailed depictions of environment, culture, conflict, and morality, the story immerses audiences in a world at the cusp of monumental historical change, exploring themes that resonate across time, identity, resilience, and the preservation of knowledge and tradition. Though the film remains speculative, the narrative underscores why the first Apocalypto left a lasting impact and why its imagined sequel continues to capture the imagination of fans and storytellers alike. Days blurred into nights as Tlaloc and his companions navigated the dense Mesoamerican jungle, each movement a careful negotiation between survival and discovery. The forest teemed with life, yet each rustle of leaves or snap of a branch could signal either predator or human. The travelers learned to read the subtle signs of their environment, the broken branch at eye level suggesting a passing jaguar, the disturbed soil indicating a rival tribe's path, or the scent of smoke carried faintly on the wind hinting at distant settlements. Every sense was sharpened, and every instinct refined. Tlaloc often reflected on how his ancestors had survived in this same wilderness, relying on intuition, courage, and the sacred knowledge of the land, lessons preserved through generations yet tested by an ever-changing world. In the village, life continued under the shadow of uncertainty. Elders held daily councils beneath great ceiba trees, debating strategies for defense, foraging, and cultural preservation. Children trained in stealth, swimming, and climbing, turning play into practice for skills essential to survival. Women maintained the balance of the village, weaving, preparing food, tending fires, and teaching younger generations about the spiritual practices that defined their identity. Rituals were frequent and elaborate, serving both as homage to ancestors and practical reinforcement of knowledge. During one night ceremony, drums echoed through the village, and firelight danced on painted faces as the elders recounted stories of conquest, flight, and cunning. Tlaloc, observing from the shadows, felt the pulse of his people and the weight of history converging in his responsibilities. Meanwhile, Tlaloc's scouts reported increasing activity of the strangers. Unlike the rival tribes, these pale-skinned invaders did not rely solely on brute force or the jungle's traditional warfare tactics. They moved with strange devices that emitted noise and light, wielded metal that could pierce armor and bone, and brought with them an air of fearsome authority. The threat they posed was unlike anything Tlaloc's people had encountered, forcing him to adapt, innovate, and teach others how to respond without panic. Using the jungle's natural traps and hidden paths, Tlaloc orchestrated ambushes that leveraged knowledge of terrain, timing, and psychology. Streams became barriers, cliffs served as vantage points, narrow trails allowed small bands to confront larger forces strategically. Each skirmish taught lessons, both in strategy and morality, when to strike, when to retreat, and how to weigh immediate survival against long-term consequences. As the days progressed, Tlaloc's relationship with Izel deepened, grounded in mutual respect and shared responsibility. She became both his confidant and advisor, guiding him in understanding the spiritual dimensions of leadership and survival. Through rituals, she connected the group to ancestral wisdom, invoking the protection of gods and spirits. One night, deep within a sacred grove, Izel conducted a ceremony to honor Jaguar Paw's spirit, lighting fires in the shape of a jaguar and chanting words older than the oldest trees. Tlaloc knelt beside her, feeling the presence of ancestors as if they were guiding his decisions, whispering caution and courage in equal measure. Such moments of reflection were essential. They reminded the group that survival was not merely physical but cultural, moral, and spiritual. Tensions escalated as the strangers drew closer. Their numbers were growing, and reconnaissance suggested they were organized, coordinated, and unyielding. Tlaloc recognized that a direct confrontation could result in disaster, yet ignoring the threat entirely would invite devastation. He devised a plan to both protect the village and gather intelligence, sending small, highly trained parties into the forest under cover of darkness. Nahuatl led many of these missions, marking paths with subtle signs and traps to mislead enemies. Izel accompanied some, performing rituals to protect the scouts from harm and invoking the favor of spirits. Each expedition revealed more about the strangers' methods, their reliance on horses, unfamiliar weapons, and rigid formation, but also their vulnerabilities to the unpredictable and unforgiving environment. Alongside external threats, internal pressures arose. Not all villagers agreed with Tlaloc's cautious approach. Some demanded aggressive action, eager to demonstrate strength or avenge past conflicts. Others feared any action could provoke the stranger's wrath. These divisions tested Tlaloc's leadership. He had to navigate tribal politics with the same skill he applied to jungle survival, mediating disputes, fostering unity, and ensuring that fear did not erode trust. Elders reminded him that the survival of the culture and the safety of families were intertwined, and that every choice had implications not only for today but for generations to come. The journey led Tlaloc's group to abandoned temples and forgotten ruins hidden within the jungle, remnants of civilizations that had already fallen. These sites were more than archaeological curiosity, they offered strategic vantage points, knowledge of past defensive techniques, and symbolic reminders of the fragility and endurance of culture. Among these ruins, Tlaloc found inscriptions and carvings telling stories of previous rulers, battles, and alliances. He interpreted these symbols not merely as history but as lessons, adapting ancient wisdom to contemporary challenges. The young warriors trained in these locations, learning stealth, coordination, and the value of patience in preparation for inevitable confrontations. Conflict eventually erupted. In a sequence of tense skirmishes, Tlaloc's group faced both rival tribes and encroaching strangers simultaneously. Each engagement tested the integration of knowledge, skill, and courage. The jungle became an ally and adversary, dictating movements, concealing ambushes, and challenging endurance. Traps inspired by ancient designs slowed the strangers, allowing small bands to strike decisively before vanishing into the undergrowth. The morality of these confrontations weighed heavily on Tlaloc. He grappled with the imperative to protect his people while minimizing unnecessary bloodshed. Izel reminded him that every act resonated with history, shaping not only survival but the soul of the tribe. Amid these struggles, spiritual elements played a vital role. Dreams, omens, and rituals guided decisions. Tlaloc experienced visions of Jaguar Paw, not as a literal presence but as the embodiment of courage, foresight, and responsibility. In one vivid night vision, the spirit of his ancestor appeared at the edge of a river, pointing toward the path the strangers would take, symbolically showing the interplay between nature and human foresight. The visions reinforced the importance of integrating intuition with observation, courage with caution, and tradition with innovation. The narrative expands further as Tlaloc's people adapt to the sustained threat, reinforcing village defenses, mastering jungle warfare, and preparing for the eventual arrival of the strangers in force. Each day combines action, survival, cultural rituals, and leadership challenges, all building toward a climax where the survival of the tribe and preservation of cultural identity hang in the balance. The young warriors now embody the teachings of generations, the lessons of the jungle, and the spiritual guidance of their ancestors. The stranger's appearance in larger numbers tests every strategy and every bond, resulting in sequences of tense confrontation, clever maneuvering, and moments of profound courage. Apocalypto 2 opens in the shadow of a world forever altered. The great cities of the Maya lie in ruin, their temples swallowed by the jungle, and their people scattered, struggling to preserve what remains. Among the survivors is Kin, a young man descended from Jaguar Paw, whose cunning and courage ensured his ancestors escaped decades earlier. Kin navigates a jungle that is no longer only familiar but also treacherous, its paths concealing threats both human and natural. Rumors of pale-skinned strangers arriving by sea reach his village, men with shining weapons, enormous animals never before seen, and beliefs incomprehensible to those who have known only the ways of their ancestors. The jungle itself seems to hold its breath, watching, testing, and challenging all who traverse it. Kin's village lies hidden deep within the Yucatan, a delicate harmony of fire, laughter, and ritual. Elders recount stories of fallen cities and heroic ancestors, linking the past to the present. Children play along riverbanks, while hunters track the jungle silently. When scouts return reporting strange ships along the coast, the village is thrown into cautious debate. Should they flee deeper into the forest, or confront a threat they scarcely understand? Every choice carries the weight of survival, the preservation of culture, and the fate of generations. Kin sets out to understand these new dangers. Alongside Ixchel, a young woman of sharp insight and spiritual intuition, he ventures into the uncharted jungle. They encounter other tribes, some offering cautious hospitality, others armed and suspicious. Kin proves his lineage through demonstrations of skill, participation in rituals, and respect for sacred spaces. Ixchel reads the signs of birds, the shifting currents of rivers, and celestial patterns, guiding their path and helping avoid both natural and human dangers. Each encounter is a delicate dance of trust, diplomacy, and survival. The narrative vividly depicts the richness of Mesoamerican life. Villagers weave vibrant textiles, prepare meals of maize, beans, and squash, and perform dances and rituals marking the cycles of nature. Drums and flutes resonate through the forest, carrying stories and warnings, calling the community together. Architecture ranges from simple thatched homes to grand ceremonial sites, reflecting ingenuity and symbolic importance. Every practice, every artifact, and every song is a thread in the fabric of survival, linking past to present, life to ritual, and people to place. Tension rises as European forces advance inland. Scouts report ships with white sails and armed men moving through rivers and valleys. Kin recognizes that hiding is no longer sufficient. He consults allied tribal leaders, devising traps, decoys, and strategic maneuvers. Pit traps, camouflaged snares, and false settlements turn the jungle itself into a formidable ally. Kin's leadership, paired with Ixchel's insight, forms a partnership balancing courage, strategy, and cultural wisdom. Together, they anticipate the invaders' movements and exploit the unfamiliarity of the Europeans with the dense, wild terrain. Encounters with Europeans are tense and morally complex. Some attempt negotiation, offering trade or promises of peace, while others demand submission through force. Kin must weigh immediate danger against long-term survival, making decisions that reflect both ethical and practical considerations. In one imagined scene, Kin whispers to Ixchel as they watch from the treetops, "Their weapons may kill, but our knowledge of this land can save our people. We move with the jungle, not against it." Ixchel nods, eyes scanning the river bend below. Every choice is a prayer and a test. One misstep, and all is lost. Action sequences escalate with precision and intensity. Kin leads ambushes along riverbanks, overturning canoes, triggering traps, and guiding his allies through narrow paths where the jungle's natural obstacles amplify their advantage. The environment becomes a living participant. Sudden rains turn paths into mudslides, falling branches block pursuers, and predators hunt opportunistically. Each movement, each decision, demonstrates the integration of human skill with environmental mastery. Survival is not brute force alone, it is understanding, anticipation, and respect for the world around them. Disease introduced by Europeans spreads silently, claiming lives in its wake. Fever, weakness, and despair test the village's resilience. Kin and Ixchel work tirelessly, improvising herbal remedies and isolating the ill, balancing care with the need to remain undetected. Emotional depth permeates these sequences, grief for the fallen, determination to protect the living, and the realization that survival requires both courage and compassion. Characters reflect internally, weighing the cost of each choice and the price of preservation. Alliances with neighboring tribes grow, forged through shared danger and mutual respect. Kin negotiates exchanges of food, intelligence, and rituals, forming a network capable of resisting European incursions. Trust remains fragile, with occasional betrayals threatening cohesion, yet solidarity ultimately prevails. Rituals, storytelling, and music reinforce identity, preserving culture even amidst external threats. These sequences emphasize that survival is as much cultural as physical. Knowledge, tradition, and communal memory are weapons in their own right. The climax unfolds as European forces converge on a river valley where Kin's coalition has prepared an intricate defense. Traps spring, decoys mislead, and storms, summoned by the season, aid the defenders. Kin coordinates with allies across the jungle, directing movements and communicating silently through signals known only to those attuned to the land. Ixchel guides warriors through hidden paths, interpreting subtle cues in wind and water. The European forces, despite superior weaponry, are disoriented by terrain, climate, and strategy. The sequence is brutal and tense, blending action with the suspense of survival. Lives are lost, but critical victories ensure the preservation of knowledge and culture. The resolution emphasizes reflection and cultural continuity. Survivors regroup, performing rituals to honor ancestors, teaching the young, and maintaining traditions that connect them to the past. Kin and Ixchel, though scarred by loss, find hope in the endurance of their people and their heritage. The jungle, once again, is both protector and adversary, shaping the fate of those who inhabit it. In the distance, the sails of new European ships hint at ongoing challenges, reminding all that survival is continuous, both in body and in spirit. Throughout the narrative, the balance between cinematic action, historical authenticity, and cultural depth is maintained. Characters are multidimensional, the environment is active and influential, and cultural practices are integral to the story. Action sequences remain intense but grounded, environmental challenges shape outcomes, and moral dilemmas create emotional resonance. Dialogue and internal monologues convey strategy, reflection, and emotion, ensuring that every element contributes to a cohesive, immersive experience. Ultimately, Apocalypto 2, as imagined, honors the legacy of the original film while expanding its scope to explore the arrival of European forces, the resilience of indigenous cultures, and the complex interplay of survival, morality, and identity. The narrative immerses audiences in a world at a pivotal historical moment, blending action, drama, cultural richness, and historical plausibility. It is a story of endurance, strategy, and cultural preservation, illustrating the profound human capacity to adapt, survive, and preserve identity in the face of overwhelming change. The forest seemed to hold its breath as the strangers advanced, their approach announced by the faint clatter of metal and the unnatural rhythm of hooves on soft earth. Tlaloc had anticipated this moment, having spent weeks preparing both his people and the land itself. Paths were subtly redirected, natural traps reinforced, and signal systems, branches tied in discreet knots, stones stacked in patterns only his warriors understood, communicated enemy movements. Villagers moved like shadows, quietly reinforcing barricades made of sharpened stakes, woven reeds, and felled trees, creating layers of defense that used the jungle's density as a weapon. Even the children played a role, guided by elders, carrying messages, or maintaining fires that concealed movements, turning routine survival into orchestrated preparation. The first clash came just before dawn, when the light was dim, and the forest's natural mist obscured vision. The strangers, confident in their strength and unfamiliar with the terrain, walked into carefully laid ambushes. Tlaloc's warriors struck with precision, using spears tipped with poison, slingshots, and arrows crafted for maximum efficiency. They disappeared into foliage before the invaders could regroup, leaving confusion and disarray in their wake. Nahuatl, leading a small flank, guided younger warriors along secret trails, cutting off escape routes and forcing the strangers into the traps prepared by Tlaloc's strategic insight. Fires were lit in calculated patterns, smoke creating cover and signaling positions, blending ritual with practical warfare in ways that confused and intimidated the invaders. Amid the chaos, Izel performed rituals near sacred stones, invoking protection over the warriors. She traced symbols on the earth, chanting words that had been passed down for generations, words said to strengthen courage, sharpen perception, and honor ancestors. Her presence was both practical and symbolic. It reminded the warriors that their fight was not only for survival but for the preservation of culture, identity, and the continuity of memory. Villagers and scouts who might otherwise have faltered drew strength from her ritual, moving with a synchronized precision that felt almost supernatural. Even the youngest warriors found confidence, their play and training converging in moments of critical necessity. The fighting continued over days, a tense ebb and flow that tested endurance, strategy, and ingenuity. The strangers adapted, showing more coordination and an understanding of the jungle than expected, but Tlaloc's people were always one step ahead, using every natural advantage available. Waterways were rerouted, loose rocks positioned to create controlled landslides, and vines used to create trip mechanisms that slowed enemy advances. Every encounter strengthened the group's cohesion, reinforced their shared understanding of the jungle, and deepened the bonds forged in adversity. They learned not only to fight but to anticipate, to turn every obstacle into an advantage, and to rely on intuition honed over lifetimes of experience and storytelling. Beyond the practicalities of defense, life in the village continued in parallel, balancing preparation with continuity. Rituals marked each day, from offerings to the gods of rain and harvest to nocturnal dances celebrating survival and strength. Storytelling remained central, connecting the young to the past, teaching them the values, histories, and strategies of ancestors in ways that were both entertaining and instructive. Elders reminded the warriors that strength alone was insufficient. Wisdom, humility, and respect for the land and its spirits were equally essential. These lessons were dramatized during ceremonies where masks represented the spirits of jaguars, eagles, and serpents, symbolizing courage, vision, and cunning, qualities necessary for both survival and leadership. The spiritual dimension deepened when Tlaloc began to experience vivid visions during moments of rest. One dream showed Jaguar Paw standing on the edge of a cliff, pointing toward a hidden river bend where the strangers would later attempt to cross. Another vision depicted the spirits of past leaders, whispering strategies and warnings through rustling leaves and flickering firelight. These experiences were interpreted not merely as prophecy but as the culmination of knowledge, intuition, and ancestral guidance. Tlaloc shared these visions with the elders, reinforcing their combined understanding of tactics, the forest's rhythms, and the importance of unity. Amid growing external pressure, internal conflicts emerged. Some villagers advocated for outright confrontation, frustrated by the waiting, the stealth, and the constant vigilance. Others feared provocation, urging avoidance and retreat. Tlaloc navigated these tensions with care, mediating disputes and demonstrating through example the effectiveness of patience, observation, and strategic action. His leadership became a living embodiment of Jaguar Paw's teachings, the courage to act decisively, tempered by foresight and respect for both the environment and his people. As the strangers' numbers grew, Tlaloc orchestrated a decisive strategy, using the forest itself as an ally. Narrow ravines, dense undergrowth, and hidden groves became instruments of war. The warriors moved silently, coordinating through subtle signals, flanking the strangers and forcing them into pre-designated zones where traps, barriers, and ambushes awaited. Rivers were used as natural moats, cliffs as vantage points for projectile attacks, and smoke as both concealment and signal. Each maneuver blended ancient knowledge, natural observation, and improvisation, reflecting a cultural memory encoded in every action. Amid the military preparations, the narrative explored deeper layers of culture. Festivals, rites of passage, and mythic storytelling continued, reinforcing identity even under siege. Izel led ceremonies honoring the river spirits and forest guardians, weaving narrative, song, and movement into practical teaching for scouts and warriors. Young warriors internalized these lessons, understanding that skill and knowledge alone could not secure victory. Respect for nature, spiritual attunement, and moral judgment were equally essential. Each ritual acted as both cultural reinforcement and tactical preparation, blending the sacred with the practical in a seamless continuum. Finally, the climax approached. The strangers attempted a coordinated attack, seeking to overwhelm the village and seize resources. Tlaloc's careful planning turned the tide. Hidden traps immobilized key units, while ambushes from elevated positions decimated the vanguard. Smoke and fire obscured visibility, creating confusion and fear. At each critical moment, Tlaloc's strategic insight, Nahuatl's scouting, and Izel's spiritual guidance converged, allowing the villagers to repel the attack with minimal casualties. The strangers, though technologically advanced, were unprepared for the intelligence, resilience, and ingenuity of a people intimately connected to their environment and history. In the aftermath, Tlaloc's people emerged not only victorious but wiser and more cohesive. The experience had tested their courage, sharpened their skills, and deepened their understanding of both the jungle and the broader world. Rituals of thanksgiving and remembrance were performed, connecting the present with the past and ensuring that lessons learned would endure for future generations. The narrative emphasized that survival was more than victory in battle, it was the preservation of identity, culture, and memory in a world of uncertainty and change. The legacy of Jaguar Paw lived on, embodied in the bravery, wisdom, and adaptability of his descendants. The concept of a sequel to Apocalypto, 2006, often referred to as Apocalypto 2, has captured significant attention among fans of the original film. The first movie, directed by Mel Gibson, concluded with a striking image of European ships on the horizon, signaling the arrival of a new era and leaving the story open-ended. This unresolved ending has naturally inspired speculation about a follow-up. Despite widespread discussion online, no official confirmation has been made by Gibson, Icon Productions, or any major studio regarding the production of a sequel. The original film remains a landmark for its use of the Yucatec Maya language, immersive jungle cinematography, and intense action sequences that focused on Jaguar Paw's journey of survival. Many of the videos, trailers, and promotional materials claiming to represent Apocalypto 2 are actually fan-made. These materials are often labeled as, for artistic purposes, and explicitly state that they are not official productions. Some of these concept trailers combine AI-generated voiceovers, edited footage from other films, or scenes from the original Apocalypto, creating the illusion of a sequel that does not yet exist. Therefore, these materials should be considered speculative content rather than evidence of an actual film in development. While they reflect the excitement and creativity of fans, they do not indicate any confirmed studio involvement or production plans. Regarding the potential storyline, very little is confirmed. Fan speculation suggests that the sequel could explore the consequences of first contact between Mesoamerican civilizations and European colonizers, focusing on themes of cultural survival, resistance, and identity. Some online theories propose that Jaguar Paw could return as the protagonist, older and more experienced, or that a new character could take the lead, navigating the challenges of a society under threat from outside forces. Potential plot ideas include dramatic confrontations, efforts to protect communities, and explorations of cultural and spiritual practices. However, no official script, plot outline, or character list has been released by any credible source, so these remain speculative interpretations. Rumors about a release date suggest 2025, but there is no verified studio announcement to confirm this timeline. Information regarding casting, filming schedules, production locations, or budgets is entirely unverified. Until a credible announcement is made through trade publications, studio press releases, or statements from Mel Gibson, all online references to the sequel should be treated as speculative fan content. Some social media posts and websites continue to circulate dates, cast names, and story details, but these are not confirmed and should be approached with caution. In conclusion, while the idea of Apocalypto 2 is fascinating and has captured the imagination of many fans due to the unresolved ending of the original film, there is currently no official evidence that a sequel is in production. The original Apocalypto remains a celebrated historical epic, renowned for its authenticity, intensity, and storytelling. Fans should rely on credible sources, including official studio announcements and trade publications, for any updates about a future sequel. Until then, all trailers, plot ideas, and release dates circulating online are speculative and should not be interpreted as official information. The idea of a sequel to Apocalypto, 2006, often referred to as Apocalypto 2, has captured the imagination of many fans ever since the original film concluded with the foreboding image of European ships appearing on the horizon. Directed by Mel Gibson, the first film was set during the late period of the Maya civilization and became renowned for its authentic depiction of Mayan life, language, and culture. The movie follows the story of Jaguar Paw, a young warrior whose life is upended by invasion and human sacrifice, and whose survival journey drives the emotional and narrative heart of the story. The conclusion, which hints at the arrival of European explorers, left audiences wondering what would happen next, naturally prompting speculation about a potential sequel. Despite this enduring interest, there has been no official confirmation from Mel Gibson, Icon Productions, or any major studio that a sequel is in production. Much of the content circulating online under the banner of Apocalypto 2, including trailers, videos, and social media posts, is fan-created. These materials are often labeled as concept or fan-made and explicitly state that they are not official productions. Many of these videos use AI-generated voiceovers, edited footage from other films, or scenes from the original Apocalypto to construct the illusion of a sequel. While these concept trailers are visually striking and demonstrate the passion and creativity of the fan base, they do not indicate any real progress on a film from a legitimate studio. It is important to distinguish between these imaginative representations and verified information, as the former reflects speculation rather than actual development. Regarding the potential storyline of Apocalypto 2, very little is officially known. Fan speculation suggests that the sequel could focus on the consequences of the first encounters between Mesoamerican civilizations and European colonizers, exploring themes of cultural survival, resistance, and adaptation in the face of foreign invasion. Some propose that Jaguar Paw might return as the protagonist, now older and more experienced, grappling with new challenges while trying to protect his community from external threats. Others suggest that a new character could take the lead, offering fresh perspectives on survival, leadership, and the preservation of culture in a rapidly changing world. Potential plotlines imagined by fans include large-scale confrontations with invaders, strategic defenses of Maya cities, and deep explorations of spiritual and ritual practices, all set against the backdrop of lush jungle landscapes and historically accurate locations. However, no scripts, official plot outlines, or confirmed character lists exist, so all of these ideas remain speculative. Rumors about the sequel often mention a 2025 release, but there is no verified evidence supporting this claim. No credible studio, production company, or industry trade publication has confirmed a release window, casting information, or a production schedule. In fact, the absence of such official announcements suggests that, if a sequel is in development, it remains at a very early stage or may not be underway at all. Social media posts, fan websites, and even some YouTube channels continue to spread speculative release dates, plot details, and casting suggestions, but none of these can be treated as reliable sources. Fans are advised to rely on official channels, such as trade magazines like Variety or The Hollywood Reporter, and press releases from production companies for any real confirmation about the sequel's existence. One of the aspects that makes a potential Apocalypto 2 so compelling is the opportunity to explore historical, cultural, and social themes that were hinted at in the first film. The original Apocalypto was praised for its authenticity in depicting Mayan customs, language, and ritual practices, and a sequel could continue to delve into these cultural elements while introducing new historical challenges. The arrival of European explorers would dramatically alter the social and political landscape of Mesoamerican civilizations, providing a rich narrative foundation for conflict, survival, and adaptation. Themes such as community cohesion, spiritual resilience, and the ethical dilemmas of leadership in crisis could provide significant depth, allowing a sequel to go beyond action and survival into more nuanced historical storytelling. Another interesting consideration is the potential continuity of visual style and cinematic approach. The original film's cinematography and use of location filming in dense jungles contributed significantly to its immersive quality. If a sequel were made, one might expect similar attention to environment, practical effects, and authenticity in costumes, weaponry, and architecture. Action sequences could expand in scale, depicting battles, stealth missions, and culturally specific rituals in ways that remain true to the historical context. The visual style could continue to emphasize the raw, visceral tone of the first film while allowing room for cinematic growth and exploration of new terrains and cities. Casting for a potential sequel also raises intriguing questions. While some fan speculation suggests that Rudy Youngblood could reprise his role as Jaguar Paw, there is no official confirmation of his involvement. New characters might require careful casting to maintain cultural and linguistic authenticity, potentially incorporating actors with knowledge of Mayan languages or heritage. Additionally, the choice of director and creative team would be critical to preserving the integrity and tone of the original film. While Mel Gibson has been mentioned in online speculation as a potential returning director, no credible source has verified this claim. Any production would likely need extensive consultation with historians, anthropologists, and language experts to recreate the depth and authenticity that distinguished the original movie. It is also important to consider the practical challenges of producing such a sequel. Filming in authentic jungle locations, creating large-scale sets of Mayan cities, coordinating action sequences, and managing logistics for a historically accurate production would require substantial resources and commitment from a studio. The risks involved in producing a historical epic, especially one that combines action, cultural representation, and language-specific dialogue, could be significant factors in why no official confirmation has yet been made. These challenges, combined with the high expectations set by the first film, may influence any decisions about moving forward with a sequel. In conclusion, while the concept of Apocalypto 2 is fascinating and has generated considerable discussion and fan interest, there is currently no verified evidence that a sequel is in production. All existing trailers, plot details, and release dates circulating online are speculative, and should be treated as creative interpretations rather than factual information. The original Apocalypto remains a landmark film for its authenticity, intensity, and immersive storytelling, and the unresolved ending provides a natural space for imagining a continuation. Until official announcements are made through studios, trade publications, or statements from Mel Gibson, the sequel exists only in the realm of speculation and fan creativity. Enthusiasts should rely on verified sources for future updates and treat all online content about the sequel with caution. The forest quieted in the aftermath of the battle, though the air remained thick with the scent of smoke, damp earth, and the faint metallic tang left by conflict. Villagers emerged cautiously from their hiding spots, assessing the results of Tlaloc's strategy. The enemy had retreated, but their presence lingered as an ominous reminder that the threats of the outside world were only beginning to manifest. Tlaloc and Nahuatl moved through the settlement, checking on families, tending minor wounds, and ensuring that the defenses held strong. Izel performed purification rituals, walking through each area with smoke and chants, calling upon the spirits of the forest to cleanse the space of lingering malevolence and to restore the balance between humans and nature. In the days following, attention turned to rebuilding and fortification. Barricades were strengthened, hidden paths reinforced, and new lookouts were established along river bends and cliff edges. Yet even in these practical tasks, culture remained central. Children participated in the rebuilding, learning through action about the significance of each stake, each woven reed, and the placement of stones as both protection and symbol. Elders recounted the stories of past leaders, emphasizing lessons of foresight, patience, and adaptability. Each act of reconstruction was imbued with meaning, blending the necessity of survival with the preservation of identity and history. As the village regained stability, Tlaloc received intelligence of a hidden network of ruins deep within the jungle, temples, towers, and ceremonial centers abandoned generations before. These sites, forgotten by most, were rich with resources, strategic vantage points, and ancestral knowledge. He decided to lead a small expedition to explore and map these ruins, knowing that the insights gained could provide both tactical advantage and spiritual guidance. The journey was perilous, the forest grew denser, rivers swelled with seasonal rains, and the path was littered with natural hazards, snakes, jaguars, and unstable cliffs. Yet the expedition was also an opportunity to connect deeply with the legacy of the people who had come before. Upon reaching the first temple, Tlaloc and his companions were struck by the craftsmanship and spiritual resonance of the site. Stone carvings depicted battles, harvests, and celestial events, each imbued with symbolism and encoded wisdom. Nahuatl carefully traced patterns in the carvings, noting instructions for defensive positions, ceremonial alignments, and water collection systems. Izel interpreted the spiritual significance, explaining how the ancients had harmonized their lives with the rhythms of the forest and sky. Each finding reinforced the connection between practical survival and spiritual understanding, a principle that guided every decision in the village and in the forest beyond. As they explored further, Tlaloc encountered inscriptions detailing moral and ethical teachings. One panel depicted a leader faced with a choice between immediate gain and long-term survival, symbolized by a river diverging into two paths, one flowing toward abundance but vulnerability, the other toward scarcity but safety. Tlaloc reflected on the parallel to his own life and the decisions he had already made. The ancestors' guidance resonated not only as history but as a blueprint for contemporary leadership, reminding him that courage, wisdom, and foresight must coexist for the good of the community. Meanwhile, the strangers regrouped beyond the forest's edge. Though their numbers were reduced, they had learned from previous encounters, adopting new tactics and increasing their resolve. Their eventual return loomed as an unavoidable challenge, demanding that Tlaloc prepare not only defenses but also strategies that could minimize harm while maximizing cultural preservation. The tension between aggression and caution created internal debates among the elders, testing Tlaloc's leadership further. He convened councils where warriors, elders, and advisors like Izel debated potential courses of action. Decisions were never simple, every choice involved weighing the safety of the people, the ethical implications of violence, and the preservation of traditions. During this period of preparation, the cultural and spiritual life of the village continued to flourish. Rituals of gratitude, storytelling, and myth-making were performed not merely as tradition but as psychological fortification. Elders reminded the youth that courage without wisdom is reckless, and wisdom without courage is useless. Tlaloc oversaw training, blending physical exercises with lessons in observation, stealth, and tactical thinking. Scouts were taught to move silently, read tracks in the soil, and anticipate enemy movements, while also learning to respect the spirits of the land and honor the sacred sites they traversed. Izel's guidance ensured that spirituality and practical skill remained intertwined, giving the warriors a holistic understanding of their place in the forest and their responsibility to their community. The climactic sequence of exploration revealed more than just practical insights, it unearthed artifacts and sacred objects that had been lost to time. Stones inscribed with celestial charts provided guidance on seasonal cycles, allowing Tlaloc to plan food gathering, defense, and travel with greater precision. Masks and ceremonial tools suggested ways to harness psychological influence, enabling smaller groups to intimidate or mislead larger opponents without direct confrontation. These discoveries underscored a recurring theme: the past was not merely a record but a living guide, offering solutions that could be adapted to the present and future challenges. As the strangers advanced once more, the village and its defenders were ready. Ambushes were more intricate, traps more effective, and coordination between scouts and warriors seamless. Tlaloc's experience, combined with the wisdom of elders and the spiritual guidance of Izel, created a force that was small in number but formidable in strategy, morale, and environmental mastery. The final engagements tested endurance, courage, and ethical judgment, as leaders weighed the cost of each action against the long-term survival of the people. Even amidst violence, the principles of the ancestors, respect for life, harmony with nature, and preservation of culture, remained central, guiding each decision, each movement, and each victory. The story culminates in a tentative resolution. While the strangers were repelled, their presence continued to shape the consciousness of the village. The survivors had not only defended their homes but also reaffirmed the lessons of generations, combining physical skill, strategy, spiritual insight, and moral guidance. Tlaloc emerged not just as a warrior but as a custodian of heritage, embodying the legacy of Jaguar Paw while preparing his people for future challenges. The forest, the temples, and the rituals remained vital threads, connecting past and present in a living continuum. In the end, survival was not only measured by battles won but by the preservation of culture, memory, and identity, a triumph that transcended immediate conflict and ensured that the spirit of the people endured in harmony with the world around them.